Well, there you go, folks. It's Radio FM 88 Australia. We're broadcasting from Brisbane, Australia. Now, you'll probably realise that there's only the two, our guest and myself. And that's purely because our good friend Andrena, she's crook in bed and just can't get out of bed this morning. So it's not as if she's got mum around to come with chicken soup and give her a glucose hit with barley sugar or a cup of tea. So we hope that she's watching the show and we give her the thumbs up and all the best for next week. So in the meantime, as you can see, we've got this lady and she's coming from Australia, would you believe? And if you're going to be participating in the show, just become aware that this whole show is directed to women in mining. That's right. So many of you have probably thought about getting into the mining industry, and but sometimes you just need a little guiding hand as to what's involved. And I came across Julie on the Sunshine Coast, and it was a Sunday morning gathering. And when she told me what she did, I just knew instinctively and intuitively. Listen, I'm sure there's a lot of ladies who are watching the show, not only in Australia and New Zealand and North America, but in the UK and Europe. We're thinking, oh my God, I've got to listen to the story. And that's exactly why we've got Julie on today. And so it's heartfelt thanks for Julie. Welcome to the show, Julie.
Thank you.
Right, so 5'2", little blonde chick, and I'm saying to you, you're working in the mines. And you say, yep, I'm driving trucks. And I'm being a smart ass fella saying, well, I know when we were young, we had these trikes and our feet couldn't reach the pedals. So Dad made these blocks and put them onto the pedals so we could reach the pedals to turn them around. And I used that as a reference. And you said to me, no problem. These big articulated trucks, these big dump trucks, they are configured. And in fact, if anything, they're more of a problem for you guys. And so that's the start of the laughter. And that sort of got us to the point, hey, let's have you on the radio show. Let's have a discussion. So without further ado, tell me, we've got on our little promo that you got into the mining industry in 2007. So and let's hear the backstory.
Yeah, that's correct. And actually, the shorter you are, the better off you are, because the taller you are, you have more chance of topping out on the top of the cab. So long as you can reach the truck to unisolate it, shorter the better.
Right. So at the time, you're well, start again. You obviously come from Victoria, yeah?
Yes, obviously born and educated in Victoria, but moved up to Queensland. And then when my daughter went off to university, I thought, well, it's my time now to go and do what I really need to do. And so I jumped in the car from Noosa back in 2007, drove up to Townsville, and then straight out to Mount Isa.
Right. So let's bring up the map so we can have a look to show our viewers what we're talking about. So obviously we're in Brisbane, just north of Brisbane, the Sunshine Coast, and you ended up going up here to Mount Isa. So
yeah, that's right. I had a wonderful
drive. Yeah. No.
Yes. Thank goodness to Joan Armour Trading on the cassette player. Got me out there just before the wet season set in. So a good chartered accountant friend of mine who's in Mount Isa boy, he said, well, if you're going to Mount Isa, Julie, I've got a box of units there and you can stay in the back one. I don't want anything for it, but you may have to go and collect some rent from the 3 front units for me. I said, no worries, done deal. So that was a really good start. And then I just went to the local training centres and I got onto Krause training up there at the time and had to do all my inductions for, as you know, a part of it. And then I just pretty much went to the local pub and got chatting with a local. And he said, all right, well, if you're interested, send me your CV. A week later, got the call saying, how do you feel about driving underground? And I said, well, if it's being done, I can do it. So that led me to start at an underground mine, which was about a 2.5, nearly a 3-hour drive southwest of Mount Isa. Yeah, got there, beautiful countryside, and straight into more inductions on site, get settled in the donga, which is your accommodation, and then an introduction to your truck, really. And they take you underground, for a drive to see if you panic or not. But then basically, here's your truck. So that's a picture of Mount Isa, MIM mine. So yeah, basically familiarisation with the truck, 3 laps up the top. Here's your park brake. Here's your tub up, tub out, tub down. And you got all your emergency head system on you. You're carrying about 12.5 kilos, I'd say, on your hips, and your big cap lamp on your helmet. And then, so 3 laps above the ground down the hole, which is the portal, which is a one-way road, which goes down to about, I think it was about 1890 metres, that one, or 1850, 1750, that one, metres underground. And it's a one-way track. So you've really got to be listening to the two-way, because any trucks going down have to give way to loaded trucks coming up. So POSCOMS is essential. Anyway, yeah.
And so what type of truck were you driving then to go down?
Oh, I had a Toro, the first one. It had a new paint job, so that was a bit dangerous because, usually the first one to scratch the paint, and that way they can see if you've scraped the wall as you're going down. So usually if the tub hits the walls, the backs and the shoulders and the walls of the the portal going down, sparks will fly because you can see in your rear camera. You don't have side mirrors because they're not going to last. So anyway, it was a Toro 50, renowned for blowing hoses. Yeah, 50-ton truck.
Something like this. Is this what we're talking about here? Is it the one we're talking about?
Oh, no, that looks like a cat truck. A Toro's a bit older than that, but basically, yeah, it's like that. It's articulated, so you back it up like you back a trailer when you're dropping off a jet ski.
Okay, I'm hearing you. And that takes 50 ton, yeah?
Yes. Yeah, about 2.5 buckets off it.
So your first trip is 3 laps around the outside, and then down you go.
Yeah, pretty much the trainer said, 3 laps above ground, and then you down the hole. So that's what it's like.
And then you go 1,850 metres down. Yeah, okay. So Mount Isa Mines is well known for producing copper, iron, lead, nickel, isn't it?
I never actually worked underground in Mount Isa. I was sort of south of Mount Isa at a mine, a BHP mine.
Right.
So mainly, I believe, copper at Mount Isa. Yeah, I only did surface work at Mount Isa, sort of civil service. Yeah.
Okay.
Poly welding.
So generally speaking, you drove up from Brisbane up to Mount Isa, and you just had your normal everyday car license, and then they basically gave you the ability to go and drive a heavy duty vehicle and see if you could drive through the gears. And is that how it went?
Okay. Well, initially, it was only WA back in 2007 that you needed a heavy rigid. That's one of the reasons why I chose to go to Mount Isa, because I realised, I did the research through the Mines Resource Centre, Mines and Mineral, And I discovered there's just as many holes in the ground in Mount Isa as there are in WA. And in WA back in 2007, they actually wanted you to have a HR, but in Mount Isa they didn't. So I thought, oh, well, that's easy. I'll just go to Mount Isa. I don't have to go so far. Because once you're driving on their lease, yeah, you don't, you're just driving on their lease. So you don't need.
You're basically on a private property, and that's how it works. Because the only reason I'm saying that was my dad was a quarry manager, and I did, what do you call it? Used to go off and work in the school holidays. And so one of those, or a couple of years there, I was driving a dump truck, and I was probably 16 or 17 at the time. I mean, you could get a license in New Zealand at 15. So it was just, 5 on the floor and then come to a stop, and then up goes the tipper and into the hopper. So when you were talking to me back in November, I thought, oh yeah, I understand where you're coming from and what you're doing, but these are big boys' toys, eh? That. I mean, I remember those days and having Tonka toys, and you got your mates in the sandpit, and one's got the biggie excavator and one's got the dump truck. So you're in the big sandpit, aren't you?
Well, yes. I mean, they're big girls' toys too.
Okay, I'll take that back. So let's have a look at some of those trucks that you've actually ended up driving, shall we? Because that was pretty impressive. So was it the Caterpillars? Do we go through the Caterpillars first?
Whichever you choose.
Okay, let's go with the Caterpillars. And what have we got here? The 793. Right. So this one takes, what, 250 ton? Is that right? Am I?
No, that one's about, that's a 793. So that's about you could probably get tooted off at about 180 for that, or the best payload would be 203, between 203 205.
Right. And do you have scales on the truck to let you know, or is the operator who's got the front end loaders sees it gets to a certain level and realizes it cuts off?
Well, see, that truck, you wouldn't be perhaps getting really loaded. It'll loaded more so you'd be getting loaded by a digger that's sitting on a bench. So they usually just dig blind if they don't care, or sometimes if the truck, instruments are working inside the truck, you will have a correct payload coming up, so you can see which every bucket is, what your payload is after every bucket. It's up to the operator to be responsible and, let the digger up say, I'm right with that on 203 for truck 793. Okay, off you go, because you need a good payload. There's no point driving off with half a load.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah. So
now that's a nice truck. See, that's a 793 as well, but that's got a different tub. That's got a nice heavy tub, where the one you showed previously has what they call a throwaway tub, which is a lighter weight tub. So it actually it's more comfortable with the square, heavier tubs. It's a better ride on the operator.
Okay, and how big's the fuel tank on these?
Oh, well, I don't know. I just really plug it up and fuel it up, and it switches off when it's full. Probably 240 litres, if that sounds right. Bit technical there, Jeff.
240 litres, yeah. Okay. And then you moved into the trucks, and we'll come off that one because you drove those Liebherrs, isn't it?
Oh, the Liebherrs?
Well, actually, here's one here I really like, because this is one you were driving, isn't it? So
I love that one. Now, this one was at my favourite site. This is a Komatsu 785. This was at Phosphate Hill, where I'd long to work again back there. I've still got a mate out there. and that was in the wet. So those trucks were already like 58 years old or 50 years old. And that was about 2012. So, yeah, and now we'd get bogged there, you know, like sometimes the truck would come to a stop, but the dozer would just come and nudge you out. That really doesn't happen anymore. They don't really like contact to contact. They'll hook up straps and tow you out.
All right. Okay, so what's the next one? Got the lever one, don't we? Okay, let's see. Here we go.
Yeah, so that's the mechanical truck. Totally different to all the. Sorry, that's an electric truck. Totally different to the mechanicals. So you really got to think 4 times ahead to pull this truck up, because you know it doesn't stop on a postage stamp like the Caterpillars.
Right. So so each mine site, do they have a plethora of different makes and models, or they just stick with one particular model?
No, well, interesting. It has been said before. You know, interesting that they run electric trucks with cats. You know, ideally you'd want to keep them separated, but thank goodness you got good operators. So they run them together. Usually any mine site will run, well, either 2 different lots of trucks or just stick to the one.
Yeah, because I think in my dad's facilities, they just stuck with one brand because it was interchangeable with parts. Yeah. But I think people need to get an idea, which is, yeah. That just gives it a real strong impression about how big these units are. I mean, you come up to basic to the axle, don't you?
Oh, yes. And but sometimes we have to service our own trucks. And what I mean by that is, particularly in the underground 50-tonne trucks, you'd come up from underground once a day and you would fill her up and you would top up all your levels, like your hydraulic fluid, and then you'd have to blow out your filters. So you give it a quick 20-minute service, put the truck all back together again and back down the hole.
Right. So where are we going now? I'm getting an underground shot. Okay. This one looks really good too. Is this is it in a site that's continually being used, like you've already gone through it months or years in advance, or is this coming close to the coal face, or, you know, the mine face?
No, that'd be very close to the coal face, because it looks like there's actually shotcrete on the backs, the shoulders and the backs to the top of that tunnel. And the shoulders are obviously where you'd think the shoulders would be, yeah. And you got the toe down the bottom where your cursor just was. So that looks like a development area, definitely. You've got some services there, cables, these cables up the top, which you really don't want to knock down. You got electrical cables.
And what about oxygenating and ventilating? How does that all work?
Well, they've got vent bags which actually hang up from the back, running air down. So that's all part of maintaining, you know, airflow down the shaft. But also, I mean, I was hauling out. I just got loaded in the underground truck, and I'm heading out of the little cuddy where I got loaded. And I had a rock bolt poking out of my tub, which was going to rip down the vent bags, which there was only about, I don't know, 3 or 4 feet between the top of my load and the vent bag. So I called up the two-way truck so-and-so, holding on the decline, out of the cab, removing a hazard from the vent bag sort of thing. So I pulled up, and I had to get out my truck and climb into the tub on the ore and then just pull down this big meter rock bolt and tuck it in under my load, in order for me to travel up I think it was about a 35-minute slow ride up to the top to dump it. But yeah, just got to be mindful those little things can happen.
Yeah,
Good
sure.
if you can fix it up.
So you mentioned there 35 minutes just to crawl all the way up.
Yeah, you're doing about 8 Ks up, loaded. If you turn the aircon off in your cab, you could probably get another 200 revs per minute out of it. But the boys were doing it. They're just, they're all competitive. I'd just rather cruise on up and eat my banana and drink my water. Yeah.
I have heard a lot of stories come out of the mines due to the nature of my business, where there's a lot of respect for female truck drivers because they go easy on the machinery.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot too. But really, I think when I first got there, like, they didn't even have a female toilet underground, right? I was the only chick on my crew. There was only one chick on every crew. There was no female toilet. No biggie. But I've heard that women, but we can be rough in the gear too. I mean, you can give it to it. When the right opportunity arises, yeah, you can give it to it.
Basically, it's all unisex toilets anyway. You see that now in the council parks now.
Yeah. Only the one underground you really wouldn't want to go in there.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Did you ever get given a shiwi or anything like that?
Oh, my daughter actually gave me one, actually, yeah. She was, yes. Anyway, I won't go into that story, but Melody did offer, but no, I haven't used it.
Yeah, I see them
I've got a very...
Yeah, go on. You go.
I've got a very... I got good control.
Yeah. So, because you see them in BCF in Australia, boating, camping and fishing, they have the...
Yeah, I never looked.
For camping, yeah. Okay, so let's move on to this next photo. This is accommodation. So for anyone joining the mines, obviously accommodation plays a very important part. These, you see them almost like ATCO dwellings. Basically, they just might have a shower and a little vanity unit, and then one what would you call it? Cupboard for hanging space, and then basically a bed, isn't it? So you can tell me.
Yes, well, that's perhaps not the best example, but that was perhaps my second mine. I remember they didn't even have an ensuite in there, so the toilets were right down the end and the shower right down the end. So that's a pretty hard up accommodation there. If I arrived to that today, I'd probably turn around and go home.
No, I understand.
Accommodation plays a really big part. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember you explaining to me that in the more, would you say the gold fields, they're more accommodating with the fact they give you permanent rooms, so that when you come and do your 14 days on and 7 days off, you've got an actual permanent room. So when you come back, you've got aspects that are in your room that you don't have to bring a big huge bag when you're traveling from the mine site home and home back to the mine site. So that's probably something that you relish and everybody else would relish.
Oh, indeed. I just found that in North Central Queensland and over in the West, they do it best compared to the coal. People in coal, it's a whole different culture. The West, I never got a permanent room in the coal, but certainly in North Central Queensland and over in the West, it was just good. They do it best. Really helps.
Yeah, because I was talking to you this morning, and I said, one of the prime features of, in rugby league terms, the Brisbane Broncos, when they first entered the rugby league, competition, they knew that they're the only team in Queensland, but they'd be playing every fortnight down in Sydney. So they chose to get accommodation in Bondi Beach, or just out of Bondi, and that became their permanent home every fortnight. So the boys had something that was consistent, provided them with stability. They've got home cooked meals, and that plays a very important part. So what I'm referring to now is that by having a permanent accommodation, and you know that you're coming home, and that's basically what it is, a second home, it offers another aspect of mental health, because mental health is a major issue in the mining industry, isn't it?
Yeah, oh yes, it is. It's just one less thing you have to worry about, excuse me, if you do have that permanent accommodation there, particularly when you're doing a 2 week, 2 weeks on, 1 week off, you're spending more than half your life there. And it is also legislated that any camp accommodation, remote camp accommodation, mining accommodation, living away from home accommodation, it is legislated that they must reflect middle class living, middle class standards. I did not see that in coal whatsoever. It was horrendous, actually. Pitiful.
Where's that?
In the coal.
The coal industry. Right.
No,
Okay.
in the coal, like all the eastern seaboard coal industry, yeah.
So let's talk about mental health, because one of the things that you told me is that when you do those 14 days, you do 12.5-hour shifts, and that can be, when you first arrive, can be the day shift, and then the second week would be the night shift. Is that how it goes? I just can't recall now.
Yes. So it adds up to about 87.5 hours a week. So up at 3, I'd get up at 3:40, maybe 3:50 for a sleep in. 3:40 every day. Breakfast, be waiting for the bus by 5:20, get to site just before 6, have your morning meeting to see what's going on in the pit that day or any incidents that have happened overnight. And you just get up, go to work, go back to your room. I'd have all my clothes sort of set out ready for the next day and snacks packed and everything. And then you get up and do it all again. It's just like Groundhog Day, really. I just found it very useful not to count days. So ignorance was bliss. Don't count the days. Just get up and do it. Get up and do it again, again. And then you've got changeover night, which is usually quite good. At least it's an opportunity to rebuild that culture on your crew, and maybe have 1 or 2 beers, and you get to sleep for 14 hours, and then you get a chance to go to the gym, and then you're all powered up for another week, and then you do a week of days. It is good for your mental health to maintain a routine, to keep in your own little positive bubble.
Yep.
I listen to 528 frequency music, like just to create my perfect bubble. I don't listen to gossip. I don't get involved in politics. I keep my opinions to myself unless it's a safety opinion or it really needs to be said, and then you choose who you say it to. It's good to get along with everyone, because sometimes you just need a little bit of support, and it just builds team morale for everyone if you can just keep a positive vibe,
Right. So the mine provides all meals, I take it, and they do your laundry for you?
Nah, they don't do laundry for you. Unless you're underground, Cannington, they did our laundry for us, because you've got lead contamination on your clothes. So you get out of your truck, you go to the shower block, and they'd give you a big washing bag, and you put your dirty clothes in there, you have a shower, and it's cold. It can get really cold in Mount Isa or South Hall, cold or hot. And then you take your fresh clothes and put them on and get on the bus, go back to camp. And they do your washing there, because there's a lead contamination in that one.
Right.
Otherwise, you've got to have a washing. Yeah.
The what?
Otherwise, you've got to organise a washing night. You just find your own routine. And it's good to stick to that routine. You probably get 4 or 5 sets of clothes, so you want to wash every four days or something.
Right. And so, and the meals, how's that staggered over the 24 hours, is it?
Well, the mess is open certain hours, so you've got to be there, grab your food, or eat in there if in between certain hours if you want to eat. Yeah, so it's open after work, and in the morning, and it's a great 24-hour system. It just keeps rolling over. So the people who come off night shift, you know, they will come into the mess after we've gone in there for dinner to go out to work. You know, it's just a 24-hour continuous rollover.
So you could be coming home from a midnight shift to virtually have breakfast and having dinner.
Well, I wouldn't be coming home. Yeah, I wouldn't be coming back to camp until 6:30 in the morning, leaving site at 6, say. Get back to camp at 6:30, so I'd go in the mess 6:30 in the morning to get breakfast or dinner.
Right.
But I would often keep, if you're lucky, you get a kettle in your room, and then you get like packets of porridge, you know, and you can just have porridge, and at least you got something in your belly to sleep, or at least you got something in your belly before work. And you can even make porridge in a paper cup and just add hot water, which keeps you going.
So all the dongas, they're all single rooms. There's no bunk rooms or anything like that.
No, I think some sites they actually allow for couples, but honestly, who can be bothered? You know, I mean, you're so tired.
Yeah.
No, mostly single. Yeah.
Now you mentioned before water. When you're driving the trucks, obviously you're an air conditioned. You know, that's correct, isn't it? You're driving air conditioned trucks, yeah. And
Yeah.
you're taking your own water, and rather than using the mine site water, yeah.
Oh yeah. I pride myself. I've never drank mine site water. If I went to Mount Isa, I'd get onto their water company up there in Mount Isa, and they'd normally have a bulk supply in stores. I just find some way of buying my own Mount Franklin spring water, or get it from the bulk stores delivered to my room. Anything not to drink mine site water, because it's full of what is it? Fluoride. Excuse me.
All right. And that's another aspect of your mental health. You've got to make sure that your whole physical body is both mentally, emotionally, and physically in alignment with one another, and hence the reason you've mentioned how you create your own bubble. You're using 528 music frequency, and you've been in the mine since 2007. So, what's the life expectancy? Oh, so I shouldn't say life expectancy. What's a job expectancy for most people when they go there? Do they work 3 years, just get a lot of money and move on, or have there been people like you who've been able to last a distance? How does that work?
Oh, certainly. Well, it's a mixing pot out there. You know, you've got guys who started off as an operator, and then they'll work their way up to senior management, and they've been there for 15, 20 years. So, and then there's young people who they want to go for 5 years, and they'll have a goal and reach that goal and happy with that and go. You got people who go and they just don't cut it. It's all about self-management. So the big word is self-management. You have to manage your mental health, physical health, your hydration, your organisation, because you have to be very organised, and just self-management, really.
Now, I've always been aware. Sorry, Mount Isa Mines, as up on Mount Isa, was well known for a place to go and get a work, but so too was Weipa for its bauxite. They were the two major places in Queensland that I recall. But there was also a lot of feedback coming back where single men were topping themselves off. Is that still the current case in the mine sites where fellas just get to a point and then they top themselves off?
Okay, well, recently in the coal, guy, was found dead in his donga because simply he had a stroke. So it gets very hot. People get very dehydrated because they're not drinking, even though they're in aircon. You don't realise how the body dehydrates in aircon. And then you go back to your room and he might have had too many drinks. He might have had high blood pressure already. He might have had poor health already. And he might have had stress. And he probably, he just had a stroke. So that happens often. Well, it happens. No, I wouldn't say often. And then during COVID, it was really tough over in the Pilbara. We were all stuck there basically for 3 years. There were people there stuck and depressed, not being able to get home to New Zealand or anywhere. It was. There was a few, a fatality over there. You'd hear it occasionally. Yeah.
Right. So I just brought up the map of northern Western Australia, which is around Mount Tom Price, Newman. We've got the Hamsley Ranges here. This has been a well-known place for the iron ore industry, and the likes of the big four miners there, which is BHP, Rio Tinto, Fortescue, and Hancock Prosperity. It's a really interesting colour that one sees when they start moving into the outback of Australia, and then you look at from Perth and you want to go out to Kalgoolie to the golf fields. I mean, it's quite a diverse place that we're talking about here in Australia, isn't it?
It is indeed, and the people are diverse as well. Like the Mount Isa people are wonderful to work with. I just love it. Like I love the northwest Queensland characters. And then you go to Perth, the gold fields, it's environmental, and the people are they're very straight in Perth. They're not as wild as northwest Queensland, and up in the Pilbara they're another breed again, and it's another climate. And the dirt's different. I pretty much can look at dirt anywhere over Australia and talk to anyone and I can tell where they live, what state or territory they've spent most of their time in. It's been a great way to get to know this country, I'll tell you, and the people.
So, when you start looking, this is Mount Tom Price mine. I mean, you just don't realise what scale these mines are focused on, isn't it? So
the moment I saw that, Jeff, I realised I hadn't been to that one because I've not eyeballed that one, so it's not one of mine.
Yeah.
I have been to I think 12 mine sites in 17 years, and 3 of actually 5 of those were company transfers. So 2 Rio Tinto sites, 3 McMahon sites, if I can mention names, and they were 5 of the 12.
Now, what was really impressive to me is that when you said that you're caught up in Western Australia because of the COVID situation there, and most of your workmates were interstate or overseas and they couldn't get in there, the company you worked for put out a notice and asked for people to change jobs and see if they wanted to take the opportunity. And you took the opportunity of, am I correct in saying you wanted to be a powder monkey? You're at the face of the mine underground there, drilling in and then lighting up the dynamite if you use dynamite these days and wiring it up and then coming back to the old little Acme little thing that you see in Coyote, the Roadrunner type cartoons. Is that what you were doing?
Well, yeah, I don't mind the term powder monkey, but it was more like in a morning meeting. The shift boss said, okay, this is a situation. We need a few volunteers to step off the trucks and come over to blast crew. So 3 women put their hands up, 2 younger ones and myself, and they only took me on. I don't know whether they wanted me to crash and burn, but you see, it was pretty much a 3-day training, and you're holding a booster. Okay, this is what blows up the ground, and I'm holding it, right? And I'm thinking, well, am I okay if I drop it? And then you've got to learn, well, it's not, nothing's going to happen to it until it's all wired up.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got a car full of boosters, you've got a car full of wires, and there's a whole process. Anyway, doing the whole process, throwing these, you got to put a wire on the booster and get it down the hole. Then you've got to back it up with Ampho. Then you've got to backfill it with some little stones, and then tie the whole shot in. And then someone sits up on the bank and presses the button and goes kaboom. Yeah.
And then we see Coyote.
It's just wonderful feeling being close to a blast and feeling the reverberation come off. It is a blast. Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
But it was hot up in the Pilbara. Yeah, I remember I had a Camelback on my back, and I'd be drinking that Camelback all day, but I wouldn't be going to the toilet. It'd just be sweating out of me. It was hot.
Is that right? So I just want to let people know this is not at the goldfields. This is up in the Pilbara and the iron ore. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
So you're that's an open cast. Yeah, that's open cast. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Open cut. Okay. Right.
Yeah, this is back in the day. Sorry, this was back in the day when, you know, Rio Tinto blew up the sacred sites.
Oh, okay. Right.
But it wasn't my shot. No. Okay. It wasn't.
So if I was someone listening to the show, no matter where you are in the world, knowing what you know, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to any intending person to head for the mines, and what type of role or knowledge would they best off having to apply for a job?
All right. Well, I think a lot of people are deterred because they think there's a lot of rigmarole to go through. You know, there's a lot of hoops to jump through. Persist, or just drive out to Mount Isa and go to the pub and get a job. You know, just go talk to people. I think if you go out on a limb, you're greatly repaid. You know, I went out on a limb. I went out there with like $500 to my name and a new set of tyres. And I was fortunate I had accommodation, and fortunate that a good friend gave me that. And I think if you go out on a limb and you're prepared to jump through the hoops and do the paperwork, you'll never look back. Well, you'll look back and you'll go, wow, what a life I've led. What a great time, because you do have great times.
And so an aspect there is, the next question is, how much tax do you end up paying?
Oh, yeah. This thought, you know, oh, you've been in mining for 17 years, or, you know, you must be loaded. It annoys me because I think I was on about 135 when I first started in 2007. It was all too much for me to add up. I remember thinking one day, oh, I'm not getting out of bed for any less than $325 a day. But come tax time, I mean, probably wages have gone down in mining, you know, over the years. So in open cut, you know, probably get 115, but you pay 35 grand tax in, you know. So really, you're just above the pogo line still. And it's expensive. Some sites you've got to book flights and pay for parking in Brisbane. And you do without a lot, really.
Just to stop there for a sec. So just like any other job, a person's got to find their own way to work. And so are you placed in that same position where you got to find your own way from where you are in the Sunshine Coast? You got to pay for your own airfares to get to the job site, which you could be flying from Brisbane to Perth and taking another flight to go up to the Pilbara up in the Western Australia, or you go from Brisbane to Mount Isa. Yeah,
you'd have to be a sucker if you fell for that one. I got hired by Rio Tinto from Melbourne, and my flights were all paid for. I mean, I just wouldn't sign up for that gig, you know. But a lot of people do pay their own way to get to work. Not very often. If you do a drive in, drive out, like if you drive from the sunny coast to Mowra, which is out near Theodore, it's probably a 5-hour drive. Yeah, certainly you've got to get yourself there. And that's exhausting, that drive in, drive out. I wouldn't do it again.
True. So when we talked about Mount Isa, it was the largest mining company in Queensland, but and then a Swiss-based company called Glencore, which is the largest mining company in the world, they came and bought it. So my understanding is Glencore has made an announcement they were shutting down the mine in 2025. So Mount Isa Mines actually facilitated a community to come together. So housing, the school, the hospital, Woolworths, Coles, football, Irish club, all these amenities all came. Whereas mines that came in afterwards, it was just fly in, fly out, because then the mining sites didn't have to go and put all the infrastructure in, because they might have a short lifespan on the mine. So how much of an impact do you think would Glencore have now that they're going to be pulling out of Mount Isa? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I haven't given it much thought or consideration, but the infrastructure at Mount Isa is huge, and there's so many holes around there in the ground. They'll find a use for it. They'll go in and reclaim a different grade, maybe. They've probably got a lot of work to do before they shut that site. A lot of rehab, you know, because they've got to leave it in a certain shape and form, you know, some sort of rehabilitation. But there's so many holes, there's so many mines in Mount Isa. Mount Isa will keep going.
All right.
They'll find another.
So when we go to Cooper Pedy, I mean, everybody lives underground, and people go there on a bit of a nomad tour around Australia, and they'll stop there. And there's America America Observatory. So people go out there to study the stars and all that stuff. But everything's underground, and they've got all those B&Bs and Airbnbs. Do you think there's a possibility that Mount Isa Mines itself, somebody from overseas or whoever would invest in it and set up an underground civilization hotel complex with all those different levels?
I don't think so. I wouldn't go stay there if they did, because the ground's pretty much like honeycomb out there, I think.
It's like, sorry, what's the ground is like? What?
Pretty much honeycomb.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, right.
Honeycomb. Honeycomb. Yeah. Little shafts everywhere. It's like just backfill it, fill it up. Yeah. But
I'll fill it up with water, make an underground reservoir. Yeah. Oh, no, just sort it out. You know, you never know. It's sort of been dug. Future-proof it. Right, what's the next thing? Okay, so we talked about pay. Okay, so you're working 14 days, and then you've got 7 days off. Now, with people listening about joining the mining industry, so you finish your shift on your last day, and then you make your repatriations to then get home. And so is that a whole day to get back home?
Oh, yes. Yeah, pretty much. It's the best of the day. And usually on the last day, I've already got written in a little notebook, things I have to do on my week off. And it's all prioritised. So you've got to be just as organised on your week off to pay your bills, have your dentist appointments, see your doctor, have a social event, rest, extra rest, build up your sleep bank, mow the lawn, and then pack your bag and go to the airport again, do it all again for 2 weeks.
So your 7 days, you're telling me the first day of your so-called 7 days off is travel, and you're telling me that on the 7th day, that's another travel day. So you now got 5 days in order to get rest, sleep, get your biorhythms, get going, go and do all the stuff you just spoke about. Is that right?
Yeah. I never really counted the days because my body was in such a rhythm and I was in such a routine. If I was allowed to follow that routine, which most of the time I made sure of, I just knew it was time to go, and everything just fell into place like clockwork. So I think it was 6 or 7 days. It was only 6 days we had off, I think, most of the time.
Right. So, so I'm listening to the show and I'm thinking, okay, is it more beneficial for me to make sure that I live close to the mine site? So if I'm fly in, fly out, as long as I'm close to an airport that's going to have a direct flight to the mine, I'm better off, or I'm going to be close for a drive and the drive out. So really, you've got to factor that in. But the next question you've got to ask yourself, is this working in the mines really for a single person rather than someone who's cohabitating with, with a partner or married? Because it seems like there's a lot of stress and a lot of other, and that contributes to mental illness as well, because you're not there at home all the time. You're just bringing in the money, and then you're going to sleep and you're trying to get back your whole body. And so, of that 3 days out of 21, you're really spending some time with your partner, if that.
Well, a couple of good questions there, Jeff. Yeah, living close to the mine site. Yes, it definitely helps. Definitely helps. And the trend now is to hire local, where the trend comes and goes. FIFO workers are better because they're there for the week or the 2 weeks. They stay, they do the job and go. Where the trend now is to hire locally. But then there's a less turn-up rate, if that makes any sense, because people know, I live nearby, I'm getting extra money, I just can't be bothered today. But the current trend is hire local. So yes, it probably would pay to live close if you can sacrifice that. Now, secondly, I think you need a bit of young blood in the industry. It's really tough on fathers with young kids, because they're out there whinging, I'm missing my baby. So I really like to see a lot of people in mining who are there this age, who are topping up our super funds. And then, of course, you get a bit of new young blood in there, because you've got to teach the skills there, to keep things going. And it is hard on marriages, definitely. And if you're single, well, I've really been single for the bulk of it, and I don't think I could have done it if I had a partner, because I'm too tired to talk to anyone at the end of the day.
I'm hearing. So let's ask ourselves, why do we have a mining industry? And one of the things I did when I was doing a backstory to this was Mount Isa Mines being the first, real major mine site, and there's copper. And we don't realise just how important the mineral industry is to our current consumerism on this planet. So, and we just have a look at that, just, to see how it's involved in the radios and TVs and just in electronics itself. and then we move across into silver. I mean, who would know? Who would have thought it was involved in electric vehicles? It's in our mobile phones. We've always been aware of it in coins and jewellery, but solar panels.
Yes, yeah. And we are out there ripping up the earth. It looks like we are out there ripping up the earth and leaving big holes in the ground. And while I've been out there, it's been my mission to actually send love back to the universe, to love back to that Mother Earth, actually, And I've often classed myself as being a greenie when I was a young girl. Like, my family thought I'd be the one chaining myself to the dozer for the Mount Franklin thing because I'm a tree hugger. So when I was out there, I was just giving love back to these places, really. And I guess that's how I'd console myself about the guilt of ripping it up. But it is essential, and I have seen rehabilitated land out there, rolling hills with grass and trees on it. Yeah, it goes back pretty well.
So, when we start looking at our lifestyle and we realise just how important the mining industry is to aspects of our everyday life. So then the more I looked into it, the more I realised, how important it is for Australia's economy. And there's a lot of things that we wouldn't have had today if it wasn't for an income that came into our Australian economy. I mean, the Australian economy is just like mum and dad going to work, isn't it? So, whether it's mum or dad or individual going off to work, bringing the money to run the household. Here's the mining industry, which is providing a fair amount of liquidity to the Australian economy, so we could have hospitals and roads and bridges and Air Force or Defence Force, I should say, and it just goes on, isn't it? So, and here we have the thermal and steaming coal, which is obviously coming from central Queensland and also down in Illawarra, down in New South Wales. But, at this moment of time in Australia, we don't have many nuclear power stations. We do have the hydro, but the coal stations are the ones that provide the base load, for our generating electricity for, of all things, electric cars. I mean, the electric cars will need to get charged. They need to have a base energy. It's not coming from the solar panels. It's not coming from wind farms. So we need to have a look at that. Of course, coal, this particular coal is used for steel making. So, people, you don't realise just how important this whole industry is. Gold, can't believe it.
Yes, that's right. A lot of people don't realise that you need coal to make iron and steel. It's all part of the equation. We are a very mineral-rich lump of dirt here, beautiful lump of dirt. If we could only process it more here and keep it on shore, even better.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. So I did some extra what's the name here study, and I found that the mining industry brings in $455 billion to the Australian economy. That's 2/3 of Australia's export revenue. So export revenue would be the meat, seafood, wheat, barley, chickpeas, steel ingots, aluminium ingots. It's a massive industry. It's the goose that lays the golden egg that enables the Australian economy to get its buffer through our society. But that's the federal government up here. But then we move into the individual states, and I was quite gobsmacked just how much money these individual states make from charging the mine industry in what they call royalties. So in Queensland, 21.5 billion just for coal and 5.8 billion for LNG. So, and then all of a sudden now we're seeing West Australia is making some money out of the lithium mines. You just can't understand why sometimes the greenies will go off, and yet if they just look around and see their car and their mobile phone, their house, and all the stuff that's on top of their roof or in the construction material. It's got to come from somewhere. I mean, I know that in mineral sands, for example, I know in Queensland there we had North Stradbroke provided a lot of rutile, illuminite, and zircon. And of course, a lot of that product is used for paints and for welding rods and ceramics. Sometimes you just need to step back and sort of say, okay, how are we going to get money from Peter to pay Paul? And if there's no money coming from Peter, well, how Paul's going to survive? It's almost like when a relationship flutters and you've got to split the bloody assets and all that stuff, and who gets what. I mean, we're really in a state where you've got to start looking as the overall Australian economy and saying, oh, what can we do that's going to stimulate and maintain it? And I think you just said something before about, can we get our resources and can we take it to the next level in processing and perhaps even the old concept of Lang Hancock and Joby Jockey by putting that dual railway coming across from Queensland across West Australia, and then having an iron and steel plant in both states. And one would look after the Pacific Ocean, the other would look after the Indian Ocean. I feel like I'm ranking on here. Sorry about
Okay, so yes, there have been people trying to do it, but we just hear about it and it sort of fades off. I'm not sure they really want to push ahead with that. Our government really want to push ahead with that. We're just sending all this beautiful product overseas and it gets transformed overseas. Excuse me. I've got a bit of sinus. So, yeah, definitely got to keep that conversation alive.
Yeah, so this is the annual revenue of the mining companies here in Australia. So this is the annual revenue. So, I mean, BHP and Rio Tinto are the major miners in Australia, obviously with the iron ore. And also BHPs and a few other things with down there in the Olympic Dam down here in South Australia. And, of course, there's your big Glencore.
Oh, yes. So I've really worked for, BHP, Glencore, which used to be Xstrata, Rio Tinto, McMahon, and a couple of other little, and a couple of small mining contractors. But I'll tell you what, Gina Reinhardt really knows how to do things right. I had the privilege of up in Hope Downs 1, up in the Pilbara. That was the first Rio Tinto site. And I actually had the privilege of seeing Gina Reinhardt's father's first shack, where he'd do his call samples and his barbecue was still standing. And that was a nice moment, just standing there. And Gina Reinhardt she would come to the camp occasionally and check that everything's pretty kosher. And that camp did run nice. So, yeah, I'm just still waiting for Gina Reinhardt to come pick me up in a chopper and we're going out for a big lunch.
As you would, yeah. I see she owns Atlas as well. So another couple of miners there that she's got these little subsidiaries there. And fair play to her, So
yeah.
Because quite often, and you look in the business world, the first initial person who starts it, in her case, her father, Lang Hancock, and then the second generation comes along and takes it even to another level again.
Yeah.
And then it's the third generation, they go and spend it. And so there's nothing left after the third generation. So.
Yeah, see, Gina, she got it under her nails when she was young. She just had a passion for that dirt. I love dirt too. It can look so yummy sometimes, just when the digger bucket's going down and pulling the earth up, and you can tell the cream, it just looks yummy.
Very good. Hey, now you said something before, and I thought, well, people listening wouldn't understand what you just said, but in our radio station, in our playlist, we play the binaural beats. So that's a frequency that comes out and it sort of brings your whole body in a state of mind back into alignment. So you said 528. So very interesting.
Yeah.
So that would then suggest to me that when you get into your space, whether you're driving a truck or whether you come home, you might have that shower, and that shower gives you the negative ions, brings you back into balance, and then obviously it's like you do a meditation. And so if you go to a meditation and they all say to you, listen, I just want you to put your feet in the ground, I want you to feel into the earth, and I want you to go down into Mother Earth. Naturally enough, you're already there because that's the nature of who you are. You've driven down there, you've gone down the shafts, you've gone entered into Mother Earth, you've seen what it's like, you've been in that mindset, and now you come to the surface, and well, obviously you could run meditation classes based on that.
Oh, look, the sunrises, you get to see so many beautiful sunrises. You get to see so many beautiful sunsets. You'll be driving your truck up onto the dump, dumping your load, and you'll get them, and it'll be like 4 o'clock in the morning. You've come off almost a week's night shift, and you're going, hallelujah, that sun is coming up over Mother Earth, and she is just beautiful. You get magic moments like that.
Right.
Mm.
So now that you know what you know, what would you like to do if you're if you want to get a transfer or move it somewhere else within the mining industry? What would you like to do?
Oh, okay. I think there's always workplace health and safety, but then I'm really more interested in like a wellness manager, like how to. A lot of these young kids out there now, they don't know how to manage themselves. They can't even pack their own lunch, or organise themselves, or know how to drink enough water. Do some stretching exercises to keep a good, strong physique. You really need to stretch. You really need to drink water. You really need to remain focused. You've got to, look after yourself inside and out. And I think a lot of people who start off mining, I've seen them come in and they double in size, because they eat too much camp food. Yeah. Right. Particularly after 6 weeks, you'll see the ass getting bigger or the pants getting tighter. Yeah, because they're just eating too much because they think, oh, it's all free food. Well, if you eat in the mess, right? If you eat in the mess, you look like a mess.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so we've got in your at the top there, Julie Australia, and we've got a LinkedIn there. So anyone who's in the LinkedIn fraternity, they can go in and see who you are, see your credentials. You've actually done training as well. And didn't I hear you say that people wanted to get a ticket for driving vehicles, you could give them some sort of training on that? Is that what you said?
No, I've done that in the past in Toowoomba, in civil, but I'm not in civil now.
Right. Okay. Right. Yeah. So at these mining sites, I just want to ask you a dumb question, because when you said you came back home and then you did all your banking and paid your bills, does that mean that these job sites don't have telephone reception, Wi-Fi reception, or do they?
Very poor. Yeah, no, very poor. It's very touch and go.
Right. Okay. Hence the reason you got to get home and then start cutting all your bills and paying them out and getting set up. I mean, today, yeah, go on.
Sorry, Jeff. Most men out there, they're excuse me, I've got sinus. Back again. But most men out there, they have their wives home doing it. Like their handbrakes at home, paying all the bills. But no, yeah, I never had that luxury, so it's all on me.
Yeah, my mate and I went out to a place called Tara. It's out on the Darling Downs, out Toowoomba, Dalby, and then you carry out southwest. And the population increased for the camel racing and the yabby racing, and trying to get online to make phone calls, texting, or even take photos or videos and put it up on Facebook. No, the whole system has sort of crashed. And yet today on the radio station, we got notified of an event that happened down in Melbourne last weekend with a particular singer who came in and filled out the Melbourne cricket ground. And over 3 concerts, 35 terabytes of video was put up on the internet. And if you put that and got all that together and laid it all out, that'd be equivalent to 1.7 years of video constantly going around in the loop. And that was just sheer volume of people coming online and filming. And so people in the city seem to get really well looked after and pampered, as opposed to those people in the regional areas of Australia.
Yeah, look, even just to make a dentist appointment, it's tough. Even just to make a phone call. You see guys walking around camp, and they're trying to get reception. I've got sinus, so I've got to blow my nose sometimes. Sorry.
Okay, that's all right. Right. So, would you, now that you've had this conversation, would you know what you know? Would you enter in the mine industry? I mean, or would you say, here's my list of what I would like in terms of boxes that I need to tick? And it seems to me, having the airfares airfares paid for, and having permanent accommodation where you know that your particular room will always be your room, having top quality phone reception, having the meals that are going to be healthy, the water being healthy, and of course the pay would have to be of some recompense, because it doesn't sound like the mines are really doing the recompense anymore. You might as well just stay in the cities or regional towns, and it sounds like you're getting more a lifestyle choice between life, work, and yeah, well, that's basically what I'm saying. Getting a life, yeah.
Okay, so basically, there's no lifestyle. It's best if you've got an end date. Excuse me, I've got a runny nose. Look, you can have all your boxes to tick. Rarely you're going to tick them all. Okay, it's good to set a precedence and look for those things, but you're rarely going to tick all the boxes. When I moved out to Mount Isa, I was working in an office shop kind of thing, stationery shop, and an old-timer miner from MIN, Mount Isa Mines, walked in, and I had a chat to him, and I asked him where he worked. He worked in mines. How long for? Oh, about 20 years. And I said, would you go and do it again? And he goes, yeah, I would. I don't have regrets. So that's exactly how I feel.
Right. Okay. Very good. Well, yeah, well, if we want to wind it up, or is there a question that I haven't asked you that you think that might be important to be said?
Yeah, go out on a limb. It's a great way to see Australia. You meet some fantastic people. You meet some arseholes too. Stay away from the arseholes. Right.
All right. Well, it's been our pleasure. And once again, for the people who have just come on, Andrena's been crook in the sense reason that it's just been myself and Julie today, the two J's. And with a bit of luck, she will be back on top. And we'll see her next week. But Julie's fantastic. It was a real eye-opener listening to the mines, and both underground and the open cut and above ground, and all the different minerals that Australia gets involved in, how important it is to our lifestyle, how those different products get broken down and crushed and then turned into different products that we end up using. So thank you once again.
Thank you, Jeff.
Right, well, just stay with me and